Hey y'all, it's Heel Heat time.
Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles and this is my tag team partner, Squire David Taylor.
Gary Rhodes, everybody.
And on this episode, this is a under the radar about
Lord Steven Regal.
or William Regal, depending on when you picked up on his career. Why don't you go ahead and kick it off, Gary?
Well, speaking of his career, he started off when he was 15 years old as a shooter in Blackpool, England in 1983.
Why don't you tell them what a shooter is, for those that don't know?
A shooter is a legitimate fighter. I mean, he can actually...
Well, it was a carnival.
It was a carnival thing.
Basically.
You beat this guy in like 5 minutes and you'll win $100, and the shooter will tear you a new ass within like 4 minutes. He'll give you make it look like a little bit of a show and then beat you down.
Yes. Which he parlayed from that to join in an English promotion called All-Star Wrestling, where he'd wrestle as Steve Regal and team with Robbie Brookside as the Golden Boys.
That's right.
Brookside, another...
He's a pretty big name over there.
Yeah, big name, and another guy that's an underappreciated talent.
Yes, sir. Now, he wrestled over there until he came over to the States in 1992, and he went to WCW as a face.
Yeah.
And then about summertime of '93 is when he adapted the Lord Steven Regal gimmick, and I thought he was a great heel.
I mean, he was a 4-time TV champ as Lord Steven Regal. I honestly thought he'd have more success later, but I thought he was this gimmick. Well, I mean, he basically used the same style gimmick a lot later too.
Well, if you've seen some of the, I mean, remember the matches he had back then for the TV title. I think he was to me, he was one of my favorite TV champions. He ended up, I think he won it from the first time. I think it was Steamboat.
Was it
Steamboat got it from Austin, and then he got it from Steamboat.
He beat both. He had the ones with Booker T.
Oh yeah, he had later on.
Yeah.
I like I said, he was one of my favorites to watch because that match would just keep going, and you would forget about the time limit sometimes, and you get a lot of draws.
And which is something that they need to do in wrestling still. They need to bring back that time limit draw so both guys look strong and no one looks weak.
Exactly.
Then you would have him. First he started off teaming with John Paul Levesque, who some of you might know as
Triple H
or Terror Rice.
Yeah, that was young in his career too. I think he was only in the business for a handful of years when
maybe
he got
2-3 years.
Yeah, when he got with Regal, and you could see some of the stuff that he brought later on in his career. Then he went with Bobby Eaton as
Sir Robert
Eaton. I like the vignettes. You remember the vignettes?
Yeah, where he was teaching him how to become a royal, and that's when they brought in Sir William.
Yeah.
Sir William, which was Bill Dundee as a manager. Was it funny how small Bill Dundee looked to get to them? I mean, Regal's not no huge guy.
No, he's not. He's at the most maybe like 250 sometimes when he was pudgy. Dundee was big in Tennessee area because Lawler wasn't a big man. He was 5'10".
Dundee was good though.
Yeah, he was big over there.
Then they brought in David Taylor. And, kind of had, for a little while, they had the 3-man group going, and then it just became him and Taylor when Bobby Eaton left.
Yeah.
Which he ran off and on as the Blue Bloods and as a solo wrestler till about '98, and when he had his most infamous match.
It's a match that he had with Goldberg that,
Goldberg.
Some people say he shot on Goldberg. He denies he shot on Goldberg. He was told to have a competitive 6-minute match.
I don't know. I mean, he said that on Austin's podcast, but I've seen the match. I seen it then, and it looked like something was off. And I've watched it since on YouTube because it's just interesting.
I honestly think he was doing what he was told. It just Goldberg was so green and was so used to these squash matches that it caught him off guard.
I don't know. That's the thing. You could see Goldberg's visually caught off guard. That's what makes me think it was more of a shoot than a work, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, Goldberg wasn't never, and he never would be the master technician of Regal or even Randy Savage or something like that, which these guys would go over their matches beforehand. I'm sure.
Goldberg wasn't. I mean, what's the famous Kevin Nash line from?
No, you say it better than anybody else, man.
He was going to be on main event, and we were going to need 20, but it was hard to get 10 out of him at a house show.
That's right.
Which, if you watch Legends of Wrestling, that's the beginning of every one of them, which is absolutely true. anything more than a 5-minute match with Goldberg was terrible. I mean, some people are that way. Ultimate Warrior, who I think actually is more talented in the ring than Goldberg ever was. Anything more, I mean, other than the couple of matches he had with Savage and Hogan, where it was more about the spectacle, anything more than like a 5-10 minute match with these guys, they're very limited. They didn't have a bag of tricks to pull out of. Where Regal's probably forgot more moves than most wrestlers know.
Oh, exactly. I mean, Regal, I always enjoyed watching Regal's matches. I think we watched a Doug Gilbert shoot the other day where he said that he wrestled some people that was like they weren't even in the ring, they were so smooth. Yeah. And that's how Regal is.
Well, Regal's the consummate professional.
I mean, you never hear anybody saying that Regal hurt him. And you look at some of the hits that Regal put on people and some of the moves, and they look pretty vicious.
Yeah. Which led us, after that match, he went into WWE as probably his most infamous gimmick, the Real Man's Man.
That's one of your favorites.
I loved it. I thought it was awesome. The song was great. The lumberjack look. What was there not to like?
The little brief feud he had with X-Pac.
Oh, that was good. I mean, unfortunately, he had a little bit of a drug issue, but they had to release him. But
which brought him back to WCW from '99 to 2000.
Yeah, for about a year, which he didn't. I mean, he went right back into the Blue Bloods with Dave Taylor and did something with their little crappy hardcore division they had at the time, which was a copy off the WWE, which was already a watered-down version of ECW. Which, the WWE's was entertaining. Once they went to the 24/7 rule,
it became a lot more.
It became entertaining.
Which Regal eventually, when he went back to WF at that point, he was a 5-time hardcore champion.
5 times, sucker?
5 times, sucker. But when he first came back in, he was the European champion.
As Stephen William Regal. Yes. And then he dropped the Stephen.
Just
became. What was it? Why did they turn him from Stephen William? Was it?
Because there's another Mr. Electricity. It was kind of close to Steve Regal.
But wasn't it? Remember they did a thing where like they turned Shane Helms to Gregory Helms because there was already a Shane.
Exactly.
Did they do it because there was already a Steve Austin?
They could have. I mean.
And then he parlayed that into being the commissioner. Turned on the WWE when the Alliance came in and became the Alliance commissioner, which led into another one of the infamous William Regal moments.
The first ever member of the Vince McMahon Kiss My Ass Club.
Kiss my ass!
Exactly.
Was that good?
It was good. After that, he got the IC belt a couple of times.
Yeah.
And then 3 more times with the European Championship.
Make it a 4-time. 4-time. 4-time.
Which ties him with D'Lo Brown with the most reigns as the European champion.
Exactly, which I kind of wish they had the European title back.
Exactly, it was a cool belt.
Isn't it funny, looking back now at this era, how the European belt, which was the 3rd most important belt in the company, was more important then than the Intercontinental belt is now. And that's the 2nd most important.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, after that he would go on to form the Un-Americans with was Lance Storm, Test,
and Christian.
Jericho, and Christian.
Jericho really wasn't an official member.
But he was
with them, but it was mostly the others.
Yeah. And their claim to fame was they tried to burn the flag. They did all that. Then they would split up. They split up, and him and Storm continued to tag. That's when he started racking up his tag team title runs. 2 with Storm, and one he had with Eugene. I thought it was awesome what he did with Eugene when they had the Bischoff wanting him to fire Eugene or caused Eugene to leave, and he became friends with him.
It worked out good for his character, gave him more depth as a character.
Well, it started showing you he had some of the comedic side as the commissioner. In WCW, he never really got to play out his comedic side too much. Then, playing off of Eugene, he went into the team with Tajiri, which I thought was great. Tajiri and him were just an amazing team together.
They worked great together. I guess I was more of a fan of the Eugene version, but Eugene got hurt, so they had to replace him with Tajiri, which I don't think they lost a step.
No, I mean, I like Eugene. I like the character. I'm just saying, I enjoyed him better with Tajiri. I thought it had the same thing, and I liked how they called him Tajiri.
Tajiri.
Now who called him Tajiri? JBL.
JBL called him Tajiri.
But what I mean, it was just great. And then they brought back David Taylor, and they teamed them together. They didn't call them the Blue Bloods or even do the aristocrat gimmick. They were more of ass kickers.
Yeah.
Kind of like the precursor to what Sheamus does now.
Exactly. It had the European strong
style.
Yeah.
And then, after that, after a little run with Dave Taylor retired after that, right?
I believe so.
He came back to Raw, and this was the era of the draft, so he was bouncing back and forth just like everybody else was between Raw and SmackDown. Came back to Raw as a Raw GM, turned heel again, and then won the 2008 King of the Ring.
Exactly.
That was a good one, too. That had Punk in it.
Wasn't him and Punk in the finals?
I think him and Punk were the finals.
I think so.
If not, they were...
It was a very good match, though.
Yeah. Which led him into the feud for the Intercontinental title with Punk.
Exactly.
Which, again, he racked in another Intercontinental title. Then shortly after that, they did he was drafted to ECW, where he did the thing with Kozlov and Ezekiel Jackson, which...
Fairly mentionable.
they
were trying to build the younger guys up, but you got to have something more than just Clay. You got to have somebody that wants to do it, and you just see that neither of those guys had the heart for the business.
The next guy they put him with, the mentor, did when he went to the first season in NXT with Skip Sheffield, who became Ryback. Say what you want to say about Ryback. He has the passion. He's been... Before he was Ryback, was he plugging away for 7 years, trying to get to the WWE? And he was Ryback before WWE. They made him be Skip Sheffield, then he came back as Ryback again.
The guy is talented.
Yeah.
I would like to see more style, more people have the style that Regal had nowadays, though. I mean, Punk's matches were Daniel Bryan. I mean, Daniel Bryan's style is great.
Well, I mean, they're both guys that trained at least for a little while under him. Them guys, Cole Cabana went and trained under him. Chris Hero went and trained under him for a while. He's helped out a lot of the guys that are coming through FCW and NXT now, the guys that are going on the main roster. Helped a guy like Dean Ambrose kind of take his indie style and transform it into a WWE style.
Did great. Their matches were nice, though.
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. Plus, when need be, he would step out, because after that, once he did the NXT run, he became the NXT and FCW commentator, and then when it turned to NXT from FCW, well, NXT, the game show went off the air.
And it became NXT the show, the brand.
No, NXT, yeah. But he was in FCW by that point, doing the announcing in FCW, which turned into NXT. Kind of a little bit convoluted. But he would, he had the times, there was that with he did the thing with Ambrose, and he did the thing with Cassius Ohno, who's Chris Hero, and helped to build them up, leading up till now, where they just announced him recently as the NXT commissioner, which I think is perfect.
Oh, well, you remember, like we was talking about earlier, the GM roles before, the commissioner roles before, with, back in the early 2000s. I think he'll do great with the NXT commission.
And I think, and no knock on JBL, because I think he's great as an announcer and he was a good wrestler, but I think he's better for that role because he's someone that's in NXT all the time. Exactly. He's there every week. If they need to have a match made, he's there. Mm-hmm. Whereas JBL was only there once every few weeks, maybe once a month, or once every other TV taping.
Now, let me ask you, we've seen a lot of Regal's matches. What would you say...
20 years at least watching them now.
What would you say was, everybody says your favorite. What was your least favorite Regal match?
The Battle Royal, the Hardcore Battle Royal.
I think it was, that was a bad one. I didn't care for I think it was Inoki he wrestled.
You didn't like the match against Inoki?
I didn't like the match against Inoki.
Well, he had to go, at that point, Inoki was what, 50?
Something
55?
like that. I just wasn't, I was underwhelmed.
But you see, you didn't follow Japanese wrestling. Whereas I did. To you, it was nothing. That would kind of be like Hulk Hogan versus The Rock. Remember, Hulk Hogan versus The Rock, not a great match. Spectacle, great. Match, not some. Or Hulk Hogan versus Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
You know, it just...
Like I said, it wasn't my cup of tea, man. I really wasn't interested in it.
That's because you're not an Inoki mark.
Are you an Inoki mark?
No, but I like Japanese wrestling and I respect what he's done for the business.
Oh, like I said, I mean, it's just one of my least favorites. Okay, what was his best match?
Best match? Oh, man, it's hard to say. Him and Booker T, the run they had back and forth where the TV title in WCW's was great. I'm probably going to name a few. There was a few matches, I forget what pay-per-view they were on, but remember he had a feud with Mysterio for 2 or 3 pay-per-views?
Yeah, I remember that.
Those were awesome. That was when Mysterio was at his best. I liked his matches with Punk too.
I must say I liked the King of the Ring finals with Punk we were talking about earlier. That was a damn good match.
Yeah.
With Steamboat were great. You know, I mean, you had 2 guys that could really go, and they would go all at it. And I always liked those matches.
It's hard to nail down just one. He has so many.
Exactly.
I mean, there's not one that just really like blows the rest away. They were all solid.
Well, that's where I was going to with this, though. You know, it was hard for us to say a least favorite match, but we can just
no,
pop
it's
out.
easy for me.
Well, you get what I'm saying. You couldn't name hardly more than that.
No, I
where when we can name like as good matches as great matches, you kind of run out of time.
Honestly, I think that's the only bad match I've ever seen, and that's not his fault. It was the WCW's fault for booking such a shitty angle.
It was shit. Pure shit.
My favorite match is him and Goldberg.
Yeah.
I just laugh at it, you know. I don't care what he says, I still want to believe it's a shoot.
I kind of too. Well, I mean, you got a guy that's coming in there and they're giving him a top spot, you know.
Yeah, he needed somebody to build him.
Exactly, and, you know, look at the people that took to build Goldberg, and then he kind of...
We touched on it a bit, but if you don't believe the impact that Steven Regal had, just think about this for a moment. Daniel Bryan, CM Punk, Chris Hero, Triple H, all 4 guys, all 4 of them, at least partially, were trained and mentored by William Regal.
And that's the thing about him, like you said, with this NXT coming up, with him being a commissioner, he's going to be working right with these kids. And it'll kind of remind you of like when Heyman was working the developmental leagues, and you know, he helped with Punk and Brock, and, you know, certain things like that.
I mean, the guy's a multi-talented wrestler. The most disappointing thing about his career, and I thought they were going to do it when he was the King of the Ring, is they never put the main championship on him. And unfortunately, the times where he probably was close to getting it is when he got popped for drugs. I mean, unfortunately, we didn't bring it up too much because we don't want to dwell on negative of the guy.
No.
But probably, would you say he's in the top 10 of in-ring talents, just in-ring?
Definitely. And one of the most underestimated or underrated talkers in the business.
He was great. I mean, there's not a thing the guy couldn't do. I know you're not going to like this, but he reminds me of Terry Funk. Where Terry Funk can wrestle, and a lot of you guys out there are too young to know or too young to remember, but Terry Funk is more than just a hardcore guy. He could wrestle absolutely any style. Now, when he got older and the hardcore style was mostly in vogue and it was a little bit easier on his legs and everything, he leaned on it. But to me, Regal's that kind of guy where you could put him in any kind of match with any kind of wrestler and he'll pull it off. I mean, he looked good against Sandman. He looked good against Rey Mysterio.
Well, I mean, that's the thing with him, though. I mean, if you were, like, booking matches, he'd be one of the ones you want to put with anybody.
Exactly.
And you'd have a great show. He could work the beginning of the card or he could work the main event. And he could put on a great match either one.
Exactly. Just a consummate professional. But basically, that's all I have to say on this. Anything you wanted to add?
That's it.
My name is George Coles.
I'm Gary Rhodes.
And this has been another Under the Radar, brought to you by
Heel Heat.